Hello everyone, Grandpa Ron here again. We've been looking at the book of Exodus, and today we're going to continue looking at chapter 11. Now up to now we've had, or the past few lessons anyway, we've been talking about the plagues that God struck Egypt with and the reasons behind that. And just as a recap, God put Egypt through these plagues to convince the Egyptian people that their gods were useless, that there was only one true and living God, and He's demonstrating His power here. He's also demonstrating His power to the children of Israel because they've been living in Egypt for over 400 years. They've been exposed to this idol worship and everything, and it inevitably had impact on them. We're going to see later, even after they're released from Egypt, that they tend to want to revert back to this idol worship in a time of crisis. But for now, God is convincing them that He is the one true and living God, the God of their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Moses is His representative, Moses and Aaron. And God is demonstrating His great power and the fact that these other gods are just man-made, useless idols. The way He's doing this is He's using Pharaoh, who is stubborn of heart, and He's given Pharaoh opportunity after opportunity to let his people go. But the Pharaoh has chosen to not follow God and His requirements at every stage. And the word says that God hardened Pharaoh's heart, but we've seen that Pharaoh hardened his own heart. Yes, God knew the buttons to push. He knew what was going to happen with Pharaoh as each of these plagues hit. He knew how Pharaoh was going to react. So he was actually hardening his heart through his actions, knowing what was going to happen. And so we've gone through 9 of these plagues, and now we're going to come to number 10. Now, chapter 11 is very brief. We're going to hit the highlights of it. When we get to chapter 12, it's going to be kind of lengthy because it is quite detailed in how the Israelis are going to be able to save themselves from this last plague, we'll call it. But let's look at chapter 11 and see what we can glean out of it. Verse 1. Now the Lord said to Moses, one more plague I will bring on Pharaoh and on Egypt. After that, he will let you go from here. When he lets you go, he will surely drive you out from here completely. Now, when God first encountered Moses, or Moses first encountered God, and God told him what He wanted him to do in coming to Egypt and confronting Pharaoh, He told him that Pharaoh was going to resist. And He told him what he was going to do. All the way back in chapter 4, as you recall, in verse 23, it says, behold, I will kill your son, your firstborn. That's what He's going to reiterate here. But see, Moses already knew this. A better way to read this is that now the Lord had said to Moses. So Moses knew this all the way from chapter 4. So see what Moses does. Verse 2. Speak now in the hearing of the people that each man ask from his neighbor, and each woman from her neighbor, for articles of silver and articles of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Furthermore, the man Moses himself was greatly esteemed in the land of Egypt, both in the sight of Pharaoh's servants and in the sight of the people. These plagues had, to some extent, been successful in turning the hearts of the Egyptians, partially because they are fearful, they see the great power of God, but partially because they see Moses and Aaron as God's representatives, and they are telling them each time what's going to happen, and it's happened. So they're very credible, and they see how God has poured out His grace on them, because a lot of these plagues didn't affect the Israelis at all, the children of Israel at all. And they're starting to side with Moses. Let those people go. You know, they've been here working for us for all these years. Let them go. So that nothing worse will befall us, but their hearts are being softened, contrary to what's happening to the Pharaoh, and they're showing favor to the Israelis, the children of Israel. And this gold and silver is actually payment for the years of bondage that they've served in Egypt. And we're going to see later that this gold and silver that the people give to the children of Israel is going to be used in the building of the temple and the items that are going to be used in the temple. So there's a multiplicity of purposes here. But he's telling the people, ask for the gold and silver, and the Egyptians are going to give it to them. Verse 4, and Moses said, thus says the Lord, about midnight I am going out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of the Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the millstones, all the firstborn of the cattle as well. Apparently, before he leaves the presence of Pharaoh, he tells him flat out, this is what's going to happen. And the Pharaoh's not going to be able to escape it with his high-ranking position, and the slave girl that has the lowest position in the Egyptian hierarchy. She's basically grinds corn, daily corn for people. The lowest job there is. So nobody's going to escape this. Verse 6, moreover, there shall be a great cry in all the land of Egypt, such as there has not been before, and such as shall never be again. You can just imagine the wailing and grief that's going to occur when the firstborn of each family is taken, perishes. Hard to even comprehend. Verse 7, but against any of the sons of Israel a dog shall not even bark, whether against man or beast, that you may understand how the Lord makes a distinction between Egypt and Israel. So God is going to provide a way for the Israelis to avoid this plague. The firstborn in their families is not going to perish if they will do what God says. God is making a distinction between the Egyptians and the Israelis. Verse 8, and all these your servants will come down to me and bow themselves before me, saying, go out, you and all the people who follow you, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in hot anger. So his parting words to Pharaoh, this is what's going to happen. Your servants, your people, even the people in your court are going to kneel down and plead with me to leave and take the children of Israel. They see what's happening. They understand. But Pharaoh doesn't, whether he understands or not, we don't know, but he's made his decision that he's standing against God, against God's will. So Moses leaves in hot anger. Verse 9, Then the Lord said to Moses, Pharaoh will not listen to you, so that my wonders will be multiplied in the land of Egypt. In other words, Pharaoh's going to reject this last plea to release you and the children of Israel. And it's just going to give me one more opportunity to show my power. Verse 10, And Moses and Aaron performed all these wonders before Pharaoh, yet the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he did not let the sons of Israel go out of his land. Kind of a recap. Moses and Aaron did everything God said. God did everything he said he was going to do, yet Pharaoh would not let the people go. Now we're actually going to stop there today, but next time we're going to see what this plan is, this procedure that the children of Israel can go through to protect themselves from this last plague of death of the firstborn of every household. But we can apply this chapter 11 to our own lives. How often God works around us providentially. We can see his outworking of his plan in our lives, especially when we look back and see how things have fallen into place. But at the time, we can even harden our hearts. And we tend to think that we're doing things out of our own strength, that we're smart. Look what I did. Look what I accomplished. In reality, looking back, it's what God has accomplished, what God has done. To some degree, we can actually experience this hardness. And we're cautioned about that in the New Testament as well. I hope this has been meaningful to you, and I hope you'll watch the next one, which is going to be quite detailed and is going to have implications all the way up until today. In the meantime, God bless, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.